So I just wanted to make a video about my experience thus far with the SuperTrickler. Now, I have been using this for about a week now, and admittedly, had quite a few struggles with it, which I'll get into. Just add some powder. This is some precision rifle powder from Shooter's World Propellants. Shoots pretty similar for me to Varget. But, so to get into my issues that I experienced with the SuperTrickler, really surrounded the scale. So my scale, I got an FX 300IN, which is the NEPT, legal for trade. So, to be totally honest, this came out of a cannabis shop. Got a pretty sweet deal on it, around $250. And prior to making that purchase, I contacted A&D to make sure that it was going to be usable for my needs. This model, with it being the legal for trade NEPT model, I just wanted to make sure everything was going to be, hunky-dory. Which, after some trials and tribulations with setting it up, I got it working. The most important thing, if you go the budget route like I did with getting a used scale, and you do get the IN model, highly recommend. I mean, it's not going to work if you don't call A&D and have them unlock the standard version for the scale. Because the IN 300 or FX 300 IN models, their response time is locked to the medium response time. So, right here, mine is on, I don't know if you can see that. Mine is on fast. And that's what these SuperTricklers really need. They need a fast response because of how small these powders are. Every grain of powder is going to change the weight, especially when you're dealing with powders like Ritumbo or H1000. Those larger granule powders. So having the correct settings input was basically my big issue. But I will give props to the SuperTrickler. It was able to get me at least 50% accuracy with that medium response time with Ritumbo. So after getting it fixed, I got the scale unlocked with A&D. The success rates on every throw is like in the 90-91% range, which is just amazing. So that was my biggest issue. I'd say my second biggest issue was not reading the manual. I went out and printed a copy of the SuperTrickler manual. I went to FedEx and had them print the manual for me, front and back. And I asked it for black and white, but they were nice enough, since they were going to bind it. They gave me a color cover. But I printed the manual, and in the manual, one of the very first things they say before ever loading a cartridge with powder that was dispensed by the SuperTrickler. They say before ever doing that, you must read the entire manual. And I, like many people, as I've seen on Facebook, and this is before me getting my SuperTrickler fixed, my scale fixed, to get that right response time. I was so frustrated with the lack of successful throws. I just decided to bite the bullet, get the manual printed instead of just reading it off my iPad. Went through the entire manual, and I gotta say, there's a lot of stuff in there that you should definitely figure out before ever loading a cartridge. There's a lot of things that the AI software will help you do in order to get powder profiles set up and make it throw powder extremely quick. But that was one of my biggest issues, is just thinking as a millennial, I got this. And in fact, I did not. I didn't even have my scale properly formatted and set up. So, I didn't mention this before, but the Shooter's World Precision Powder, I don't have a profile set up for it. I figured for this review, might as well show y'all an actual real-world situation of this SuperTrickler and the AI software learning a new powder that it's never used. So let's create new. Let's go ahead and select the powder. Shooter's World. I hope this is in here. Oh, precision. Okay. They just forgot the rifle, precision rifle. Fingers crossed. That is the right one. Excuse the background noise. My dog is an insane puppy. Alright, so select heading. Nope, I need to enter heading. Let's call this SW Precision Rifle. Okay. Enter charge name. Let's just call this test. Okay. Let's do a set point of 100 grains. Might as well. It's a test. Really show y'all how efficient and quick this thing dispenses powder. So, preset new. Yep. Now, what you want to do, and this is the reason they tell you to read the manual before ever doing anything, but this next step, by far, the most important thing that you do. Vibrator speed settings. This is something that you should be absolutely dealing with several times during the use of your SuperTrickler. This little vibrator tube up there is incredibly precise. So as it heats up, the thermal temperature of it, it changes. It changes the response time of how it throws powders. If you're in a not really air-conditioned environment, or climate controlled environment, I should say, it's going to affect its ability to accurately throw powder, especially as it heats up or your environment heats up. It's going to affect it. You're going to get inaccurate throws if you don't use this setting. And it's pretty easy. It auto detects. Let's go ahead and press it. What it's doing is detecting. Let me see if I can zoom in for you. Oh my gosh, I should definitely have a cup there. Sorry, before shooting this video, I was turning on the device, and while the scale and the device warm up for 30 minutes, the screen says to leave the cup off. So definitely should have put that on before pressing that. I knew powder was going to come out. So you see what that looks like. Now, what you look at on the screen is a graph, and it's the scale's response time to powders being dropped into the cup. And what it's doing is judging the amount of effort that is needed on the vibrating tube to dispense granules of powder. So, depending on the AI, and let me just clean this off real quick. That is an absolute mess. I'm not going to see this. Just terrible. Just terrible. A little OCD, but that's okay. All right. So, after it auto detects the minimum vibrator base speed, it asks you to set the maximum. And what that means is, let me see if I can get both of them in here. What the maximum is basically, all right, well, how fast can the owner operator of the SuperTrickler stand powder coming out? And it can come out pretty dang quick, and it just spills everywhere. So let me zoom out a little bit. It's basically asking your tolerance level for the cleanliness of your SuperTrickler and your reloading bench. Obviously, everyone who dispenses powders is going to want the powder to remain in the cup as much as possible. So, what you do is press start. You can see powder's coming out. We're getting some spillage. So, going to just lower that. Still coming out. Lower it a little more. And it looks like no more powder is coming out of the tube. So we're going to press stop, save. Now we can go back into dispense. And let's get this cleared off. All right. Now let me zoom out and reposition. All right. So it's saying the cup is not empty. And it's going to say that if the scale is not zeroed. So going to press auto and start, and it's going to re-zero. All good to go. Now the first few throws, as you can see here, possible overthrow required. It's going to overthrow the first few. It's learning the powder, learning how much of the bulk tube is needed, how much of the fine, and how much of the pulse input is needed to accurately dispense. See, we got the fine going, bulk just finished. Fine is figuring out just how hard it needs to push, and we got that required overthrow again. Only 0.08 over. Oop. See what I did there? I nicked that tube just a little bit. I got a few granules of powder, so just dump that back in. Alright, so that required overthrow is not there. Let's see how quick it can do it. Oh, went over again. Success rate of 0 so far. But like I said, the first few, they're going to be over. The AI is still learning this powder, sorry. That one stopped it much shorter than the previous one, the bulk did. Right on the money, 9.5 seconds. Not bad. This precision rifle, it's an extruded powder, nowhere near the size of Rotumbo. It's not a ball powder. And my best advice, a lot of people like to share their settings, what worked for them, and I'll show you what I mean. 10.8 seconds. So every powder, the AI software learns settings. And what I mean by that, let me zoom in for you. All of these are your bulk profile settings, and your fine and your pulse each have a profile. And a lot of people like to share these settings, so they're aiming to help other people share the knowledge that their SuperTricklers learned while their SuperTricklers were throwing these powders. I don't like that. I learned I did not like that because when I went to utilize several different people's settings that they were, gracefully and kindly sharing with everyone, what I found is every single time that I input all the settings that they had, it would be wildly off. And what you're doing by inputting these settings, you're not giving the SuperTrickler the chance to learn your powders in its local environment where you've got your SuperTrickler set up itself. You're taking what worked for another SuperTrickler by using these settings that are provided by others online, like Sniper's Hide and SuperTrickler Owners Group. And that's just not going to work. That vibrating tube for the pulse and fine is so sensitive. It's not going to necessarily work in the environment that your SuperTrickler is in. Might be set up at a totally different climate. More humidity. It was hotter that day that the guy that was sharing his settings for his SuperTrickler than it was for you in Canada. So definitely don't recommend doing that. Let your SuperTrickler learn how it needs to throw the powders for you and for itself, really, to be as accurate as it can be. But I'll just go through and briefly explain. In the book, they say to don't overwork the motors as much as possible. One thing I like to do when setting up my bulk profiles, though, this is one setting, one of two settings that I'll really mess with. And what it is on the bulk profile setting, just going back to the dispensing menu or screen, I'll hit profile. I'll go to bulk, and I'll hit the test screen, just like we were doing for the vibrator speed test. And hit bulk profile. And what I like to do is set the motor current. Right now it's at 1750, and it lowers. Really don't need that much power going to the motor. Having that much hitting the motor can put more stress on it and it could wear out faster. I always let it do it itself. So, and then one other thing, which I'll eventually get to if I'm unsatisfied with how slow the SuperTrickler's dispensing the powder is, I'll adjust the set point, which is basically when I'd like the bulk tube to stop throwing. Ideally, you want to get that as close to the final charge as possible within reason, like half to a quarter of a grain. I've seen some people do it as much as a tenth of a grain within the final weight. And depending on the powder, that can be kind of a hard task to accomplish with a SuperTrickler. So you got to give it some wiggle room when you're doing things like that. So I'm going to save, zoom out, and readjust. All right. So let's let it keep going. Give it a few more. And after you get out of the profile menu, even though it's on auto, it wants you to press start. And that's just over. And I did just mess with one of the settings, and so I will say that that is okay. Right now we're sitting at a success rate of 50%, total 2 counts of successful throws, an average time of 10.1 seconds. Obviously, with something like this, a lot of people bought this for a couple reasons, but I would say the main two are the accuracy, inherent accuracy that both the scale and the trickler provide over something like a Chargemaster Lite from RCBS provide. Those lights only go, or the links, sorry, only go to a tenth of a grain, while these go to 2/100ths of a grain. Another benefit a lot of people would, within reason, get a SuperTrickler is the overall speed and efficiency, how it dispenses those extremely accurate throws. 14.1 seconds, increasing that success rate to 66.6. Increase that average time to 15 seconds. Me personally, with the benefit of improved accuracy powder throws, I'm okay with the powder charges taking a little longer. Anywhere from 10 to 15 seconds, I can't perform what I need to do, like pulling out, placing a bullet, a freedom seed on top of a piece of brass that I just dumped that powder charge into, and placing it on my arbor press to seat. It's more than 10-15 seconds. I've got, I don't know if you can see this, I'll have to adjust. Me personally, I've got the 21st century arbor press. So I like to see the seating pressure on every one of my freedom seeds. So I like to slowly go up and see where it finally broke over. And that definitely takes more than 10 or 15 seconds. Let me pan back over. Alright, so that last charge, let me readjust. Last charge was 12.7 seconds. That's success rate increased, 75%. We've done less than 10 throws, if not right at it. But it's getting better. It's 10.2 seconds. I'm totally happy with that. I love this thing. Definitely is a piece of equipment that I love working with, just like my arbor press. Once I got my arbor press, my favorite thing was to seat bullets. Now that I got this thing, I think my favorite thing is to dump a powder charge into a case. This is my favorite piece of equipment now. I'd say arbor press and this were my best two purchases. One purchase I recently made also after getting the SuperTrickler was a good funnel set. And I got the Area 419 funnel set. I think it's their master funnel kit or something. And while I was there, I noticed that they had in stock the Area 419 loading block, as you can see right here. Let me scoot it on over. What I really like about this, and my reasoning behind purchasing this loading block, was if I'm dispensing such accurate charges, I want a funnel that is going to give me absolutely zero issues in dispensing this incredibly accurate and efficiently thrown powder charge into the case. What I was previously using was a Frankfurt Arsenal universal funnel set, and instead of a screw-on, insert, it was instead of a screw-on adapter that was specifically, CNC'd for a 30 cal round. It had an insert with a little O-ring, and you'd plug in that insert, and there was some little space between the insert and the bottom of the funnel. So powder would get trapped in there. So these incredibly accurate and efficiently thrown powder charges, not 100% of them were making it into my cases, which was just incredibly frustrating after trying to use something like this. Worrying about 0.04 over, 4/100ths of a grain over my powder charge, while who knows how much my damn funnel was taken up, not making it into the case. So upgraded my funnel. Now that is no longer going to be an issue. So let's go ahead and dump this and redo a powder charge. You have to forgive me, I'm coming down with a little bit of a cold. 7.7 seconds. It's the AI is trying to dispense the powder faster and faster. And so it is trial by error. It's figuring out ways that it can use the bulk, the fine, or the pulse to do it as quick as possible. And that one was 8 seconds with a 0% error. So I'm just going to dump this in my new Area 419 funnel. And there we go. It's an incredibly efficient piece of machinery right here. There we go.